Well, good afternoon to you all. Today is the 5th day of our national lockdown, and I am once again Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrews in Newlands in South Africa. I have spent some time reflecting, having rung the bell earlier, on the Eucharistic readings from the day. Today we have Numbers 21 and another passage from John chapter 8. In the Numbers reading, we have the Israelites journeying towards the promised land through the desert. It notes that they become impatient on the way, and I can quite imagine that being quite real. I suspect that over the next 16 or so days that lie before us, we too will become impatient on this way, this journey, as we seek to confront the coronavirus in our midst. But in their impatience, they are plagued with snakes. And these snakes, of course, are poisonous and begin to bite them, and people die. Moses puts an image of one of these snakes up on a pole. And when people look at it, they're healed. Of course, the link to the John reading is Jesus speaks about himself being raised up. He will become that image on a pole, one at which we can look and receive healing. One of these, the reading itself has always puzzled me on one sense, that we should look at, in terms of the Numbers reading, that we should look at what has hurt us to find healing. But in fact, when you begin to reflect, or we begin to reflect on what Jesus is saying about himself being raised up, is that when we look at the cross, and particularly a crucifix, which has the body of Jesus on it, we look essentially at our own brutality as humanity, the kind of brutality that saw crucifixion as a means of punishment and of dealing with insurrection. And I suspect that somehow it is looking at that, at really coming to terms with the brutality that is part of who we are as human beings, that it's only in facing it that we can really begin to deal with it. And perhaps that's part of the challenge of the journey of Lent, is that we face those things in ourselves, in our communities, in our society, that really does seek to destroy and undermine and break up. And only in really taking time to focus on it that we are able to find ways forward and ways able to find healing. And so in that context, Jesus on the cross, a wonderful image to enable us to do that. And perhaps helpful too in this time where we are faced with this coronavirus and its devastation, not just in terms of taking lives, but in terms of shutdowns or lockdowns around the world, the huge economic devastation that brings to people's lives through job losses, through businesses just not surviving through this time. And so a need for us to look at the virus itself and deal with it. And just thankful that as difficult as that process is, that our leaders, certainly in this country and I think around the world, not always perfectly at all, but nonetheless, as nations, really taking the time to reflect and deal with it. And so my prayer is that as we take time out, forced time out, we do have time to reflect, and that we may grow in that reflection in terms of just finding new ways to live together as human beings. And that when we come out of these times of lockdown, we may find our social structures strengthened and have a deep sense, of course, that God is part of that journey, and that we can enjoy and rejoice in the peace and the love and the goodness of God in the midst of it all. Have a good day further. God bless.